Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Game's going to be decided here. Harold spots up, doesn't go, put back is good! Roberto Canada with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunter for three, got it! Per Gunter, drei Punkte. Pullem, pull up three, no good. August, the offensive board, he turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Hello, it's episode 19 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one From Worthing Town to My Town. One of my favourite things about this podcast is sharing the basketball stories of those involved in the game. As well as speaking to those involved currently, I also enjoy reminiscing about the old days. My guest this week is Chris Pullem, best known here in the UK for his time with the London Leopards and Worthing Bears. In this episode, we'll look back at his time with those clubs, why he walked away from coaching, and also dive into a project which means so much to him, My Town TV. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, Chris, welcome to the podcast. It's great to get you on. Obviously,
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
From your time here with Worthing and with the Leopards, I want to go back to the start if I can. When did basketball first become a part of your life?
That's an interesting, that goes way back. When I started playing basketball when I was about 5 years old, and I eventually played for my local high school team, the Ashland Tomcats, and went on to try to play at Eastern Kentucky University. The level was just above me when I got there, and decided to transition my career into coaching. So I sort of worked my way up, and eventually, by the age of 23, I took a position with the New Jersey Nets in their basketball operations office, working for Willis Reed and for Chuck Daly. That's where I met the legend, Mr. Bob Dunwall Jr. He and I were both working for the Nets at the same time, and that's a friendship that paid off because it was my introduction to England. That's Bob helped me get my first job in Worthing, and so that's sort of how my path took me to England. From there, I've coached at Emerson College in Boston. I left England to coach at Bellarmine University in Louisville. Since then, I've transitioned away from coaching. I'm still involved with the game.
Yeah.
We have a small regional broadcast company here where we in Northeast Kentucky, where we broadcast local high school scholastic sports. And I can tell you, I absolutely love it.
Well,
it keeps me connected to the game, and I really enjoy promoting our local players. As someone who came up in this area of the United States, it was really underrepresented as far as visibility to coaches recruiting players. They just didn't really recruit Northeast Kentucky or West Virginia or Southeast Ohio. So since I've been here, I've kind of adopted it as my cause is to promote as many players from this area as possible. And I can tell you, they've played a bigger part than we have at My Town TV, but I know we've helped several players make it on to the next level.
Right. Well, it's taking you back 3 steps. You mentioned the former BBL legend, that is Bob Donewell Jr. Now, is it true? I mean, obviously, we talk about Worthing, we talk about Leopards shortly. Is it true that before you got those jobs, you actually applied for a job with Leicester Riders?
I did. I interviewed for it. It was after Bob left Leicester, and he left for Derby, as you recall, and he recommended me to replace him in Leicester, and it didn't work out. We interviewed at someone's house in Connecticut. It was a great interview. It just didn't work out at the time for whatever reason. I probably wasn't ready to go, and I don't think they were really that sold on me at the time either. I think they had someone else in mind. But that led me to Worthing, and I absolutely loved my time in Worthing. Wasn't there long, but I've made some lifelong friends from my time there.
Yeah, I think, trying to think top of my head, Dave Harris might have been the coach who replaced Bob in the end. I'd have to look that one up. And if I've got it wrong, I'll mention it in the intro. Let's talk about Worthing, because I don't want to bring up that turned out to be a very short stint, didn't it? in Britain for you. I think you was 7 games,
Yeah,
and
it
then
did. And
you quit.
we were actually, I thought, considering our talent level, and we had guys like John Gaines and Larry Coates who could really
Mhm.
play the game. And then, I think once you get away from those two, we were a step or two below everybody else in the league. But at the time I left, we were 3-4. I thought we were competing maybe at a level above what our capabilities would probably net uh, under different circumstances rather. And we just had a falling out with Bob Woods, and Christian Hamilton, who were the co-owners of the team at that time, over personnel. The funny thing is, I became Bob and I. Of course, we had a falling out after that. About a year later, we became friends again and talked frequently about basketball and players who were trying to make their way into the pro level and to see if we could help them out. So I wouldn't trade that time for anything. Again, the friends I met, Owen Peck, Alan Hicks, several others there on the South Coast that I remain friends with to still here today. Um, but it was a rocky ending to what I had hoped was going to be more. And listen, I was also 26 years old,
Very young
and
for a head coach, yeah.
I was very young for a head coach. I wasn't mature. I took things probably harder than I should have at the time. If I had been a more senior coach, I probably would have dealt with him differently. So I'm not necessarily putting all this on the ownership. A lot of it was my, just inexperience at the time,
Yeah.
and didn't work out. But again, I still have a very soft spot in my heart for Worthing, and I've only been there 2 times since I left, other than, of course, when I came back and worked for London. But um, really enjoy that area and hope to make it back again soon.
Would you consider, obviously, what happened a life lesson for you? That shaped the future coach you would be?
No.
No.
And the reason being is these were a lot of revelations that occurred to me after I was finished coaching.
Right.
My coaching career lasted through some of my, let's 23 years old. I started with the Nets. By 35, I was out of coaching altogether. So it wasn't until after my coaching career ended that I was able to sit back and reflect on mistakes I made, how I would do things differently. Like I tell people now, if I decided to coach again today, I would be a much better coach than I was back then, because I've been able to relive all of those lessons and sort of take the positives and negatives and teach myself what I would do differently under those situations. And I think more than anything else, the advice I would give any young coach is you have to stick to your guns. You have to stick to your principles. And there are a lot of outside influences who believe they know better. You have to stick with what you think is the right thing to do. And that isn't something that I always did when I was younger. I let people influence me on decisions with either personnel or playing style, that if I had it to do over again, I would have done it my way. And then you either win or lose, but however you do it, it was the way you wanted to do it, and you can sleep a little bit better at night under those circumstances.
And the good thing is that you didn't give up coaching and you got another opportunity.
Right.
And was Bob involved again for this one? Because obviously he would have been coaching at the Leopards when the opportunity came up.
Absolutely. Um, in fact, Bob was the one who called me as he was leaving London to go to Cleveland to be an assistant with Paul Silas.
I see it was Charlotte. Was it with Charlotte?
Oh, Charlotte. That's right. I'm
Charlotte
sorry. So they
Hornets.
went right.
Yeah.
It was after. Yeah, he went to Cleveland after that. But
Yeah.
and that's when I met Annie T and Ed Simons. It was a phone conversation originally, and you know them. They're both characters. So that first introduction to them was something else, and I still keep up with Ed and Annie T. In fact, my oldest daughter Jordana is named after their youngest daughter Jordana. That's how close we were, and how much I think of those two individuals. So. But London was something. It was a team that I took over that Bob had put together. We didn't always see eye to eye on things. It was a very strong-willed team. As you remember, Bob had a tendency when he coached, he put a team together, and sort of the team mentality or the team mission was, it's us against the world.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really my approach. So we sometimes butted heads, but I can tell you, there isn't anything I would trade from that experience in London. Even Rico and I certainly butted heads a few times, and Mo and I did too. But I love those guys. I'd go to war with them today if I could. They wanted one thing, and that was to win, and to win big, and to do it in a very flamboyant style. If you're Rico, as you probably know, but that time in with the Leopards was just fantastic. And we had every intention of going back to London for another season when the opportunity came up to coach stateside back in my home state of Kentucky. Otherwise, we would have been back there for who knows how long.
Yeah. So one thing you can never say about the Leopards of that era was it was never dull. There's
Never
always
dull.
something going on. I was looking at an old interview you did years ago, and it asked you which game stood out for you. And at the time, you mentioned the Chester 44-point fourth quarter game. Do you still
Mhm.
remember that?
Oh, I remember that. And you probably remember back then, Chester was unbeatable.
A good team.
But they were unbeatable for a reason. They had the best five in basketball, in the BBL rather. You couldn't find another starting five better than what they had. And we went into that game with a game plan. Our game plan was to attack, attack, attack. No matter how far behind we got, we weren't going to live at the 3-point line. We were going to attack the rim with the intent of trying to get them in foul trouble. And by the third quarter, it looked like the end of the third quarter, rather, it looked like we had failed in that mission because they were still beating us. Now we had put some fouls on a few guys, and then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they had two players foul out. And that's when we really stepped on the gas. They had to get into their bench. And when they got into their bench, we knew they couldn't play with us. And we sped up the game. We turned them over, and we put that 44-point fourth quarter together to pull out the victory. That was a huge win because we had also played Leicester that weekend. And then the next day, we went to Towers, and we lost on a heartbreaker, a three-pointer from the corner, which was tipped in at the buzzer to beat us. Otherwise, we would have pulled off three big wins that weekend. But that Chester game is one I'll never forget.
I see you mentioned the Towers. Around about that time, I always used to enjoy, even though I was a Thames Bay Tigers fan, I used to enjoy going to see the Towers and Leopards games because of that sort of local rivalry.
Right.
What are your memories, apart from that that heartbreak against Towers? What's your memories of playing against them?
Well, to me, the Towers were always they were always the big show. They were the New York Yankees is the best way I could describe it. They had the biggest budget. They were playing in Europe. And that's how you could really determine just how good you were, is how you played against the Towers back in that day. So we loved the competition. They were always a tough out. But that game, I'm telling you, I wish there are two things. I can't go into them right now. Two things I wish we'd have done differently in the fourth quarter, and we would have gotten out of there with the win. And to this day, it still haunts me that we didn't. But they were the barometer. They were the team that could tell you just how good you were. And while we lost that game on our third game in 3 days, I felt really good about our team after that.
Who were you never really picked favorite players, but who were the key guys for you on that team that season?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jason Kimbrough was the one I could probably count on the most. He was the captain of the team, and Rod Brown as well. David Attewell was a great pickup for us during the season as he added a lot of strength inside, and he could battle. Of course, then you can't go without mentioning Martin Henlon. I mean, he brought such a wealth of knowledge and experience to our team, a team that, as you could imagine, you've got Mo and Rico partnering them with someone like Martin Henlon isn't necessarily a natural fit. They were complete opposites personality wise, but he had a way to get through to them maybe when I couldn't sometimes. He was like having another coach out on the floor. So Martin is one that I really respected. And then just the abilities of what Mo and Rico could do was just phenomenal to watch them. Carl Miller was on that team also. We had a Revante Dantzler who was our sixth man coming off the bench. From he's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally. He was only in the league, I think, 1 year. I don't think he stayed after I left, but actually, I think he did stay one more year with the Leopards. But we had a really good team, and it was really Martin that I relied on the most out of that team, to mainly because he had so much experience in the BBL. He would see things before I would, and he would as he would tell you, "I'll tell you this much for free." That was his big line every time he wanted to tell me about the next team we were playing and their tendencies. But yeah, I would say those are the guys that stood out the most.
I'll
But
be
since I
honest.
named all of them, I guess
Yeah,
they all stood out the most.
yeah. I'll be honest. I'd forgotten at one point that Martin had played for the Leopards. It's only
Yeah.
I was scanning. We used to have Tip Off magazine years ago, and I was scanning some photos, and I saw one of him in the Leopards kit, and it just all came back. I was like, I forgot he'd actually played for you.
Yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
of the- But when you look back on your time in England, obviously years down the line, I got to ask you this. You always ask when someone goes, "What do you miss the most about living in England?"
Oh boy, that's a great question.
All right, why you think about it then? I know you was an Arsenal fan. I mean, you love your football. Did you become an Arsenal fan when you came over here, or were you already into them before?
I hated soccer before I moved to England, which I now call it football, but back then I called it soccer.
Yeah, don't call it
What I knew
soccer.
of soccer was what I would watch in the United States, and it just was very low quality. And then Ed Simons invited me to go to an Arsenal match, and it was against West Ham. I won't forget it. And we sat close enough to the field where you could really get a grasp of the athleticism of those players. And at that point, it was like a light bulb went off that, okay, now I understand. These are world-class athletes doing things that world-class athletes should do. And if you're a fan of competition, then you have to respect that. So from that day on, I started following Arsenal more and more, and to this day, I don't think I've missed a match in several years, which is a little more difficult over here to watch Arsenal play every Saturday or Sunday or weekday, because those games sometimes start as early as 6:30 or 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so
So
lunchtime kickoff is not good for you.
right, right. So I guess that's one thing I definitely miss about living there is the access to the Premier League, because it is so hard to watch here.
It
But
would be hard to get tickets now anyway.
oh, I'm sure, yeah. And I miss the basketball culture in England, which I know sounds a little strange because here basketball is so much more a part of the sporting life than it is in England. But those who followed basketball in England when I was there, and I believe it's still true, I happened to catch a Leopards, or sorry, London Lions and Manchester game a couple of years ago, at the Copper Box, and the fans are so passionate about the sport, and that's what I really enjoyed, was getting to know the fans in the BBL. And I, you play everybody two or three times, you get to know most of their regular supporters. So, I got to know a lot of those fans on a first name basis, and I had the utmost respect for them because, again, it's not easy to be a basketball fan in England. You have to work for it. And that's what I really miss the most, is that engagement with the fans. And one thing that we don't have in our culture here, no matter what level, is you don't play a match and then the team and coaches meet in the pub after the match with the fans and throw back a few pints and discuss the game. That doesn't happen here in the United States.
I
And that
think
was
that's
something.
changed now.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was then, and that took some getting used to when I moved there. But I really enjoyed that sort of decompressing after the game with the fans.
Let's bring you on to the end of your tenure with the Leopards, and I can't stop without talking about Vegas.
Hmm.
And now, how did this all come about? This is would this be pre Summer League years, before Summer League was a thing? Or would it?
No, the summer league was still going on,
Right.
but this was a group that had put together the Professional Basketball World Championship, and they pulled together 8 teams from around the world. I think There was a team from China. There was the team from Brazil. There were two teams from the United States. Of course, we were there. And Ed Simons put it together and had us entered into it and let me pick the team. And I loved that. And I was able to pick several of our guys from the Leopards roster, but we also brought in guys like Jason Seaman and John Gaines, who hadn't played with us, Jermaine Brown, who and Rashad Johnson played with us too. So it was like an all-star, a BBL all-star team that we took over there. And when we got there, I think most of the fans and prognosticators figured that we were going to finish last. I mean, Vasco da Gama had just won the Brazilian League championship, and they had a player who was drafted while we were there into the NBA, Nene. And we actually showed out really well. We ended up finishing third. We beat Vasco da Gama, and we beat Magic Johnson's All-Star team, which I know that sounds like almost a gimmick, and it sort of was. But at the time, I mean, Magic hadn't been out of the league that long. Chris Mullen played for him. He hadn't been out of the league that long. AC Green played. So there were some really talented players on that team, and we were just in better shape and just ran them out of the gym. But we ended up losing to the CBA All-Star team, which is why we lost in the semifinals to them, which put us in the third place game. But that was a fun experience. Although I'll tell you this, not a great group of guys to spend a week with in Vegas. There's a lot. There's a lot of things you could. There's a lot of things you can get into in Vegas in a week that maybe you shouldn't. And that's when I decided I would never go back to Las Vegas for more than 3 days.
Well, there you go. That's a life lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
We can leave it there. We don't want to tell me those stories. But I was reading a quote, and you'd been looking forward to playing against Magic Johnson's team. And there's a quote from you that he ducked out after about 5 minutes because he didn't want to face the Leopards, which I thought was great.
I think what happened was, more than anything now, is that he realized he couldn't keep up with our speed. He had been out of the game for a few years, and if you're out of the game, the first thing you lose is your speed. And we had guys who had just wrapped up a full professional season and some really quick guards. And he just couldn't keep up with us.
Got to ask you about Vegas. Did you know at that point that you were leaving the Leopards, or did it come later? You didn't.
No, it came much later. In fact, it's kind of a funny story, but when I was at Emerson College, our athletic director Rick Bagby, I got to be really good friends with, and shortly after that tournament, he took a job at Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky, as their athletic director. And I really hadn't thought anything other than just to congratulate him. And my plan was to go back to England and start season 2 with the Leopards. And I had a call from him 2 days before my wedding to tell me he had let go his head coach and wanted to interview me for the job. He wanted me to meet the president of the university and interview for the job. And I told him I really wasn't interested because of the situation. We were already making plans to go back to London. I was getting married in 2 days. We were going to leave about a week later to go back to London and start preparing for the season. And so he said, just come down and talk to us. So the day before my wedding, in fact, I missed my rehearsal. I was on a plane to Louisville, Kentucky from Boston to meet with the president of the university, Jay McGowan, who's since passed away, and our athletic director about the job. And I really, I did not intend to take the job while I was there, but they really made it sound good. And Rick was a good friend of mine. And I came back and made the announcement after the I do's and said, oh, by the way, we're moving to Louisville, Kentucky. And I made the decision in about 48 hours notice from the time I was asked about the job to accepting it. And that was a hard decision to make because I thought so much of Ed and Annie T, and that they took a chance on me because I wanted so bad after Worthing to have another shot at the BBL. And the first year wasn't necessarily the way I wanted it, only because I didn't have a chance to pick my own players. But no disrespect to the players I had. Bob put together a great team, but I played a little different style than him, and uh, and I was really looking forward to that opportunity. And But it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up to come back closer to home. And we wanted to have kids. We wanted to have them near our parents so they could be a part of their lives. And all those factors came into play, and that's the reason why we left. I Ideally, if that had happened for my timeline, if it happened the next summer, it would have worked out a lot better for me. But we just couldn't pass it up.
And I don't know a great deal about your time there. What was that experience like for you coaching?
Well, it started out pretty good, and it ended in not so good. It was my worst coaching job in my career. The athletic director that hired me was there for about 18 months, and then he left to go back to Boston. And we hadn't made a lot of friends on campus, and administration and I had a falling out over how to handle a few situations, and it just wasn't a good fit. I um, wasn't having a good time coaching there, and I think that showed. It was a constant battle between some of the more influential alumni and some administrators, and it was a high academic school, Bellarmine, playing in a conference that um, no other team in the conference had to meet those same standards. And we needed to be able to get players in that could compete in order to win. That didn't mean we needed to hire or recruit thugs, but we needed better players. And to do that, sometimes you have to take a chance on some kids. And all I wanted was a chance to bring some kids in, and you know, it was on me if they didn't succeed in the classroom. And that was the point I was striving to get home, is that, give me a chance to bring some of these guys in and to make us more competitive. And I promise you they'll succeed in the classroom. But we really never got to that point. Um, I wasn't having a good time anymore. And I wasn't sure once my daughters came along that I still wanted to coach basketball. And that's something I never expected, Nail, in my life to come to that crossroads. That, before, being on the road until midnight, 1 o'clock to go recruit kids or go watch a team play, it was nothing. That was my life. I never thought twice about it. But then when my kids came along, I wanted to be with them. I didn't want to be gone all week. I didn't want to only see them on Sundays. And I was having a real internal struggle with that. So I decided to walk away from the game. I resigned from Bellarmine. And honestly, I don't know if I would have lasted much longer anyway. They were probably as sick of me as I was of dealing with some of the issues there. So I walked away. My plan was to take a year off, move closer to my parents, play golf for a year, and then decide if I wanted to get back into it or not. And ultimately, I decided not to. I decided I was going to try to stay involved in the game in other ways. And so I started working out players, trying to help them develop individually, using some of the training that I learned when I was with the Nets. That's what I did with the Nets. I held individual instruction with our post players and wings. So I wanted to pass that along to some of our local players around here. And from there, we sort of got into media, which we can get into a little later. But that's how things wrapped up at Bellarmine.
When did you segue then away from basketball? Was it not long after that or further down the line?
Away from it was right after I left Bellarmine. I did not go back. I have not coached since then.
And let's talk about the media then. But quickly before we talk about My Town TV, of course, I remember back when you were over here, not only did you appear on Sky Sports NBA coverage occasionally, but I don't know if you remember a little short-lived radio station called Team Talk 252. I remember.
Oh, I remember.
I remember being on the same episodes of their little show they used to have as yourself. I was always a backup guest when someone else couldn't make it because you did that. But the reason I mentioned the Sky quickly is obviously you got a chance to do that. And I heard a story that your father was over one time in London and saw you on TV doing a Sky game. Is that correct?
He was in a pub with my mother, and they just happened to look up towards the television and saw me and Kevin Cadle. It was during a Celtics Pistons game, and saw me on the screen. And I think he had a shocked moment there The reality of his son being on a TV in a pub in England was a little bit more than he could handle at the time, I think.
From there, we talk about your passion project now, My Town TV. Is that correct name? Have
Uh,
I got that right?
it is My Town TV, and as I mentioned before, we're a regional streaming channel where we cover local scholastic sports.
How did it all come about, and what is your role within My Town TV?
Sure. So I manage all of the on-air talent for My Town TV. I also am a play-by-play personality on My Town. Um, it all came about when we had these two gentlemen who moved into my hometown and wanted to start a local streaming public access channel. And my advice to them at the time, because that's also what I do on the side, I consult with businesses on how to grow their business. And my discussion with them at the time is that's great. Public access is fantastic, but if you want to make money, sports, especially youth sports in our area, is where it's at. So they transitioned their mission from public access to promoting local high school sports. And since I talked them into it, they sort of held my feet to the fire and said, "Okay, you got us into this mess. You're going to have to get us out." So I started to assemble a team of broadcasters, local broadcasters who are really just fans. They're not trained. We've trained them as we've gone along, but they're just passionate about local high school sports and promoting players from our area. And so that's our mission, and that's sort of the group of I've got right now. I've got about 20 play-by-play and color commentators on our roster. And I primarily do my old high school, Ashland in Ashland, Kentucky. I do play-by-play for their soccer, men's and women's soccer, for football, and for men's and women's basketball. And I love it. It keeps me connected to the games. It allows me to help promote these kids. Um, and I think you nailed it. It has become a passion project. It's something I absolutely love doing and would do for free.
I see. I know I've spoken to you about it before, and you just enjoy. There's something special, isn't there? As a commentator myself, is getting on that mic and calling the game. There's
Mhm.
something that always gives you that buzz, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, and I'll send you a clip. One of my first games I called as play-by-play, I ended up being the ESPN Sports Center Play of the Day that I called. So it was nationally broadcast all over the United States on ESPN. I'll send you the clip. It's well, I'll send it to you, but you do commentary also, and
Mm.
as you're calling a game, I think what you always want is to be in that situation where the tension is high, and you get to call something significant, a game winner. And so I
Mm.
had my chance. And when you hear the clip, you'll understand how you rehearse it in your head so you're ready for that moment. And when it happened, I completely lost the plot and just started screaming into the mic. And Kenny Mayne on ESPN made fun of me for almost an entire segment for the way I reacted to this game-winning shot from 65 feet. You couldn't hear anything on the mic because the I was just not professional in that moment. But I'll send it to you, and you can hear it for yourself.
I think he might have shared that before, but yes, definitely. I'd love to hear that. I'm not sure if I'd be able to put it in the podcast or not. I have to double check.
Yeah,
But so what's your hopes then for My Town TV going forward?
sure. My hopes is that we can continue to promote our local talent in order to help them get to the next level, to achieve their dreams of playing at the college level. And we can quantify exactly how many we have helped since we've been on the air now for this is our seventh year. And the percentage of players that have gone on to the college level versus before we were here, it's astonishing how many we've been able to help get there. So that's going to be our goal going forward too, except we're expanding our market. We're moving into a larger region now. And what we hope to do eventually is to move into central and western Kentucky and more into Ohio and West Virginia and try to expand. We would love to open other offices in other regions in order to help promote players. We think we do a service, um, and what I hope is that the players that we cover see value in what we do, and I hope that they can see that what we're doing is we are taking those players into the palms of the hands of those coaches that are trying to recruit them. And we're giving them access to watch them anytime they play. We're putting them on streaming, and that's our intent, is to help them get to the next level.
And you say about streaming, just say anybody listening to the podcast remembers you from your Worthing and Leopards days, and they wanted to catch a game. You on the mic? Where would they find you?
Sure. If they follow MyTown TV on either X or Instagram or on Facebook, or we also have our own YouTube channel, and we have an app too. So MyTown TV, search it on any of those platforms. And I'm on the mic anytime Ashland shows up as one of our. Those are the only games I do anymore. I used to cover all the schools, but now I just focus on our local team, the Ashland Tomcats. But you can find me on those broadcasts anytime.
I will make sure to put a plug when I release the podcast. Listen, Chris, it's been absolutely fantastic to catch up with you today. Mm-hmm. Look back on your time with Worthing and Leopards and obviously what you're doing now. And I want to wish you all the best for the future. And just to say, like I said, thank you for jumping on the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate it. And, if there's anything I can do here stateside to help any players who would like to find a place to play here in the United States, you've got my contact information, and we would love to hear from them and see if we can't help them out.
Hello, it's me again. I'm going to waffle on for a few moments, just in case you might want to turn down the volume a little. That clip Chris mentioned in the interview, well, obviously I couldn't use the ESPN bit, but Chris kindly provided the original clip of him going crazy on the comms. So, while you debate whether to lower the volume a bit, let's give you a bit of a description, as it's an audio podcast after all, and you can't see the play. Ashland, unbeaten on the season, were tied with West Carter, and there was 2 seconds left. The ball was about to be inbounded from under the basket to Cole Villas, who was near centre court. Over to Chris.
Inbounds the ball. It's going to be Cole Villers. Cole Villers, 3.
Chris told me that the Ashland Tomcats would go 33-0 that season, but were denied the chance at a championship due to the outbreak of COVID. So, that wraps up another episode. As always, anything you can do to help share and promote the podcast would be appreciated. But for now, until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.